What should an agent be doing in January to make sure that they have a great 2025? And the answer to that question is you don't wait until January. This is a cyclical business. And so the things we do now are ultimately what's going to show up in the new year. And that's why this is so important. We don't take a break and then get started in January, because if you do that, what's going to happen is that, your business is going to wait until March to get going. The elephant in the room is that we have an election coming up. If you're in the U.S., I know we have many different countries watching, but if you're in the U.S., we have an election coming up. And I want to start off just by saying that if, who wins that election is greatly going to determine how your business does, you might as well just get in a coffin and wait. Just go to a cemetery and pick out a plot, because I know it's really important to a lot of you, but ultimately it shouldn't affect what happens with your business. Statistically, when you look at what elections have done to a real estate market, in 9 of the last 11 years following an election, home sales have increased. Every year except for 2008, in the history of our country, home prices have increased after an election. And so what does that mean? That means that a lot of people wait on the sidelines. They're not sure what to do. And they just kind of hold out until after elections, and then ultimately those go up. But the thing that I really want you to understand as we start looking at planning at 2025 is, last year in the US, at least, we had about 3.8 million sales. And there's all this discussion right now about, can we get to 4, 4.5? When will we get back to 5? And I think what is kind of lost in this discussion is that 20 years ago in 2005, there were 7 million home sales. Like, think about that for a second. It wasn't 4, 4.5, 5. There were 7 million home sales when there were way less people on the planet. And so what does that mean? That means we have a bunch of 25-year-olds living in their parents' basement. We got a lot of pent-up demand. And ultimately, when that turns and when we get the number of people back into the market and we get to 7 million, 7.5 million, 8 million, those types of numbers, those that prep now are the ones who are going to be taking advantage of that. And those who set up the right systems and processes now, those, I say it all the time, our job is not to make people buy and sell. Our job is to be there when they make that decision. Our job is to be an option when they make that decision. I've said a million times, guys, visibility trumps ability. We don't talk people into doing things. We're there when they make the decision. And that's a very important thing we've got to understand. I put into, you look at AI, if you put into AI, ChatGPT, and you put in what's the number one reason that agents fail, because we know that there's a 75% failure rate in year one. Do you know the number one thing that comes up? It's lack of a business plan. That's number one. And I don't know if it's actually lack of a business plan. I think that's how we communicate it. But the truth is, how many of you, when you make your business plan and you're struggling the next year, how many of you in July are looking at your business plan? I don't think many of you are. That's not reality. And when I thought about what to say to you guys for this call today, I thought about that stuff. I want to make sure that I'm saying stuff, I'm communicating stuff that I really believe. And when we say lack of a business plan, they say a great business plan, it kind of lets what you're going to be doing, or it gives you a plan from a year out, 6 months out, 3 months out, whatever it is. But the truth is that more than a plan, we need to make sure that we have clarity and we have purpose, for your month, your week, your day. Like, what does that actually look like? Because that's what we really go back to. We don't necessarily go back to the plan, but we do go back to routine. And one of the questions you're going to hear me ask you today, if you're watching me or you're listening to me, is how boring can you become in 2025? How boring? And you're like, well, what the heck does that mean? How boring can I become in 2025? And really, that's what success in the coming year comes down to. How boring can you become? If you were to look at and I'm going to talk a little bit about this today. If you were to look at my life, if you were to look at, what I do on a daily basis, especially when I'm not on the road, a lot of you follow me online and you follow my social stuff and whatever, but 99% of the stuff that I do doesn't end up on social. It's just my routines. It's my boring routines. It's eating the same stuff every day. It's working out at the same time every day. It's just the routine. And that's really what it comes down to. And that's what we're going to talk about a lot today is, what routine are you willing to commit to? Like, how boring are you willing to be in 2025? Like, that's something that should go up on your guys' walls or on your mirrors or on your, your phones or whatever. Like, how boring can I become in 2025? I mean, how's that for motivation, guys? Like, how boring can you become? We are, when we talk about the elephant in the room, we have to talk about the idea that there's a lot of stress in our industry right now. There's a lot of uncertainty. And like most things, stress is a two-edged sword. It's misunderstood. I've talked about before how stress is the leading cause of disease and all these kinds of things within our bodies. But what a lot of people don't talk about, and you can go Google this, is that stress actually makes you stronger. It makes you healthier. It actually makes people more resilient. It makes people kinder. It makes people, it's all the meaning that you assign to it. How are you handling that stress? But stress actually does make us stronger based on the meaning that we assign to it. And so some of you are going to look at everything going on in our industry, and for some of you, it's going to take you down and make you weaker and stress you out. And for some of you, you're going to understand that stress is what builds muscles. Stress is what builds resilience. Stress is a necessary component to becoming a stronger, better person. And like I say, every single year when we do these business plannings, there are always two different businesses that you're in, right? You're in the business you're in and the business that you're going to be in. And that's a very important point, because your job is always to be putting yourself out of business. And when you understand that change is a part of your job, you're not fearful of change. You don't worry about change. Change is inevitable. But the difference is whether change is happening to you or whether you are making that change. You are bringing that change. And we're at a point right now where we have to be the ones who bring the change. God knows there's been enough forced change on our industry. We've got to be the ones that are forward thinking, that we bring the change. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. We've got to recognize opportunities. Once everybody recognizes opportunities, they're not opportunities anymore. Like, that's how it works. When you look at our strategy from years past or years going forward, it doesn't matter what we used to do. It just matters what's now. There was a time when, postcards and direct mail worked very well, and then it stopped working very well. And then it started working again because everybody stopped doing it. There was a time when, expired properties were an awesome opportunity, and then they stopped being an awesome opportunity. And then you look at year over year, and expireds in the US at least are up over 100%. Like, think about that. And yet many of you gave up on that opportunity. And so we have to be open to the idea that these opportunities change, they shift, they're fluid. And we got to be open to, not whatever our doctrine is, whatever the things are that we held on to, but like, what's working now? We got to get back to, remember when you first started? And for some of you watching me right now, you did just start and you've got a certain hunger right now and you're ready to go. And some of you remember what it was like to used to be hungry. And, with all the changes that have occurred in our industry, the question I want to ask so many of you is, are you still hungry, or you just want something to eat? Because those are two different types of people. There's a hungry person and there's somebody who just wants something to eat. And the difference is they're both going to eat, but one of them is willing to do whatever it takes, and the other one just sits down and has whatever's in front of them. And that is not the person who's going to be able to take advantage of the opportunities that we are going to have in this marketplace. When I say to you that back in 2005, there were 7 million transactions, those will not be realized by those who are just ready to eat. Those are going to be realized by those that are hungry, those that are willing to change, those that are willing to make it happen. I used to share this story when I would do events, and I haven't shared it in a while, but it's just so true. One of the things I used to do to keep myself hungry, and I would recommend this for every single one of you, is whether it was a great market, a bad market, a mediocre market, whatever it is, I've said over and over, there's no such thing as a good market or a bad market. There's just a market you're in and what you do for it. And those sound like great taglines, but here's what I mean by that. I used to go and look up, and I would recommend this for every single person watching right now. I used to go and look up in my local MLS how many transactions happened in the last 12 months. And I would come up with some number that was thousands of transactions. And then I would take my number, the last 12 months, whatever number of transactions I did, and I would subtract it from that massive number. And I would be left with this massive number that was left over, which was the number of transactions that happened in my area that I had no part in. And then I would ask myself a very simple question of why. Why did all of these transactions happen and I had nothing to do with them? And there is a very small percentage of them that obviously happened because somebody had a friend in the business or somebody, whatever it is. Most of them was because people didn't know that I existed. And what I love about that, what's so empowering about that, is that that's something I have control over. We just did, right before I got on here, I just got done with a live call with our Jared James Academy students. And we were breaking down how to leverage local business owners and Facebook Lives and interviews and giveaways and contests and all these different things in your area to be the most visible agent in your area. And it's just so true. Like when you get that number of transactions that happened, you had nothing to do with, it either depresses you or it makes you hungry, right? It's just like stress. It either stresses you and gives you disease, or it makes you stronger and it pushes you and it makes your muscles grow. It's the same thing. It's all the meaning that we assign to it, right? And so I would recommend that exercise for every single one of you. Like, what is that number? And then ask yourself why. Because then the only next question when we start talking about planning is, how do we get in front of those people? How do we become an option? And then the answer to that is what I said in the beginning, which is, how do you become the most boring person in your area? How does your routine mirror that of the most boring person in your area? Maybe not what you're putting out as you're boring, but just how routine can you be? I've been doing this thing at live events I've been doing lately, where I've been doing keynotes and stuff, and I do this motivation scale, and I do this scale where it's up on the top, and I go, this is where we are right now. You're at an event, you're feeling good, you're feeling, whatever. But when you leave here, you're going to be down here in the valley. And where you actually get the things that you wanted when you were at an event, when you get motivated, is not from being at the top of the motivation top, at the mountaintop. It's down in the valley. What you can commit to down in the valley is what you'll ultimately get. It's what you'll ultimately deserve. When you can forget about feelings and and you can connect why it is you said you were going to do what you were going to do to something that matters to you, whether it's pain or pleasure, whichever way motivates you, and what you'll do in the valley every day, what you'll do in the boring, what you'll do when you don't feel like it, that's ultimately going to determine what you get. I went to the gym today for the however many time in a day and did not feel like it and had no motivation to do it, and literally just had to tell myself, just get in the car and go there. Like, just go there. Just go and just figure it out, whatever. No motivation. No, it's just the valley. That's what ultimately determines, what we end up with in our lives is the valley. Okay. So I preface that because I'm going to talk about 5 things today that I want us focused on. And obviously there are way more things we can talk about, but I want to keep it simple. I want to keep, really the focus on things that I know you guys will actually do, because I've said it for years. I don't think most of you will actually be looking at a 37-page business plan in the middle of June. Okay. What will we actually commit to? And that brings me to my first point. If you're taking notes out there, the first thing that we have to do when it comes to our business plan, and we're going to go over an actual plan and the digital planner we use all the time. But the first thing we want to do is just take control over your calendar. That's it. Take control over your calendar. Your calendar determines ultimately what you get, where you get, whatever. Like this is a very important point, guys. And I said this in some of the promo leading up to this. We do not get what we want according to our goals. Okay. Goals are like company forecasts. We just make them up. Like, you guys ever watch Shark Tank? And they got some crew that walks in and they're like, last year we did 300,000. This year we're going to do 500,000. And next year we're going to do 8 billion. That's what we're forecasting. Why? I don't know. We're just guessing. Okay. That's what goals are. Goals are guesses. It's like, this is what I think we should do. But the truth is you don't get what you want, or you don't get what you deserve, whatever it is in the coming year because of what you want or because of what your goals are, because of what you're, whatever. You get ultimately what it is that you commit to, that you have a plan for, that you actually, it makes sense. It's not about guesses. And ultimately that's what your calendar is all about. So when I say to you guys, how many of you are committed to making 2025 your most boring year ever? What I'm talking about is on your calendar. What does that calendar look like? Like what is it you're doing every single day, whether you feel like it, don't feel like it, whatever it is. And by the way, all of your calendars are different. Like your calendar should correlate to your lifestyle. Your calendar should correlate to what season of life you're in. One of the things that bothers me is like this idea that, a lot of you will listen to, gurus like myself. And it's like, here's exactly what your calendar's supposed to look like. And yeah, there are times of the day when certain things work out better. We know that from a prospecting appointment setting perspective, we know statistically 9 to 11, 4 to 6. We know that works, right? But when you talk about what it is you're doing every day and when you're doing business and when you're doing appointments and when you're working emails and when you're doing all those things, you do have to take into account your lifestyle and the season that you're in. If you look at my day, I work out the same time every day. I do appointments. I do meetings the same time every day. I do trainings the same time within a block. I do email returning the same time. And it has to do with the season of life I'm in. I know when my kids aren't home. I know when they're out with their friends. I know when they're at different practices. I know when they're at, and that makes it easier for me to stick to what I said was that boring lifestyle. And so the first thing you need to do when we're talking about your calendar is you need to look at your lifestyle. You need to look at the season of life you're in. You need to look at what other priorities you have in your life to make sure that your calendar is something you're going to be able to stick with. That may not be like anybody else in your office, but it's what works for you. What's going to allow you to stay committed, to stay consistent, to stay boring? Like, what's going to allow you to do that? And then when we talk about what goes on that calendar, I just put a video up about this on my Instagram, and I talked about how, we don't make money hourly. If you're in real estate, if you're self-employed, we don't make money hourly. We make money in surges. And I know it's very popular for us to tell you, like, okay, figure out what you made and how many hours did you work, and that's what you make hourly. And that's great because, we're trying to get you to delegate. We're trying to get you to hire people. We're trying to get you, like, that's all great. But from the perspective of productivity, we make money in surges. And we do ourselves a disservice by not understanding what those surges are so that we can duplicate them, so we can replicate them. When you look at what you made in a month, it's not that you worked, 160 hours that month and here's what you did and whatever. Generally, that money you made in a given month or a given week or a given whatever it happens to be was really made in a matter of hours, if you really think about it, right? So you need to figure out what those surges are, and then how do I replicate? How do I duplicate, right? Like, ultimately, what is your goal for the number of open houses when you're actually in front of people? What is your goal for the networking you're doing when you're around other people? You're building your core. What is your goal? When is on your calendar when you're shooting content and you're staying in front of people and you're staying visible? When is your prospecting happening? When is your setting up appointments and doing those type? When is it happening? One of the things I would love for all of you to do, I already talked about going over, the number of transactions that happened in the last year in your MLS. The other thing I'd love for you to do, and this is going to take a little time, but it's worth it, go over your calendar the last 12 months, or maybe even 3 months if 12 months is too long, and look at your calendar and look at all the activities that were on your calendar and which ones were money-making activities, what I call those surges, and which ones were really just kind of like, you're just doing them. They're customer service. They are whatever they are. Because if a minimum of 50 to 60% of your calendar is not money-making activities, well, then really what we are is we're more of a full-time customer service rep. And customer service reps get paid like customer service reps, and salespeople get paid like salespeople. And you can't, when we talk about surges, you can't have surges in your income if you're in customer service, because you're going to get a 3% raise, a 2% raise, a 5% raise. Salespeople ultimately eat what they hunt. And so we can't have a disconnect between what we say we want and then the activities that we're doing on a regular basis. So when we look at our calendar and we say, how boring can we be? Part of figuring out what that all the time activity is looking at what are those surges, what are the things that create business, and how do we get more of that on our calendar? That's how you're ultimately a salesperson and not a customer service rep, no matter what your business card says. If I look at the majority of your activities, and the majority is customer service, the majority is marketing, the majority is whatever it is, that's what you are. It doesn't matter if occasionally you're doing this other thing. That's what you are. And so we need to look at our calendar and say, hey, does this equal what it is that I'm ultimately saying that I am, right? And then the other thing we have to do when we start to look at our calendar, I share this every year, so I'm going to share it now so you guys can see it too. I'm not going to go into full depth on this, but we're going to give you guys a copy of this, okay? Let me make this a little bit bigger here so you guys can actually see what it is here. This is your digital planner, okay? Your digital planner. Now, this planner right here, let me just expand this here. And Tom, you guys can see this? Give me a thumbs up. Every one of you should be filling this out, because ultimately, when you look at what we do, we're not after closings. We're after conversations. We're after appointments. We're after these are the things that are controllable. So every one of you, when you look at your calendar and you say, how boring can I be? In order for you to know the activities you have to do, you've got to know, what are those activities? What are they supposed to lead to? And ultimately, it's about those appointments. It's about those conversations. So every one of you should be filling this out, because what it's going to do is it's going to take your last 12 months, and ultimately, based on the numbers you put in here from your last 12 months, it's going to tell you, hey, here's the number of appointments that I ultimately need, which is really what matters, right? What you're going to find, by the way, is if you have a 50% closing ratio when you meet with a buyer or you meet with a seller, that means that if you want to close 50 transactions in the next year, you only need 100 appointments. And think about that. When you really break that down to the boring, that's 2 appointments a week. That's not anything crazy. And when you realize how low that number is and how little it takes to actually hit the numbers that it is that you want to hit, you start to realize just how much time we're wasting, how many things we're doing on a regular basis that are busy, but they're not productive, right? We say all the time, I say, it's business, BUSINESS, over busyness, BUSYNESS. At the end of the day, when you're forced to when you look at your calendar and you look at those numbers and you look at all of these things, you say, well, wait a second. Why is it that me and this other agent in my area, we work the similar hours, but they're getting completely different results, both for the good and for the bad? It's because not all hours are created equal. At the end of the day, we have to look at, okay, is this productive? Is this creating appointments? Is this creating conversations? If it's not creating those things, then those aren't surges. We're just kind of wasting time. And I think all of you would agree that you would prefer to spend more of your time doing things that actually create those surges. Now, if you'd like that business plan, Tom, if you could write in the comments, just have them go to www.jaredjamestoday.com/plan. Okay, just PLAN. You all are going to get that for free. Okay, so Tom will put it in the comments right now. It's just Jared James Today /plan. And you know what I'll do? I'll actually do a little thing so you guys can see where to go as well. Jared James Today /plan. So let me get rid of this one and I'll play this one for you guys. Boom. There you go. If you go to jaredjamestoday.com/plan, you guys will see that planner there. That will give you an idea of what exactly you need to hit your goals based on your previous experience. Okay. If you're brand new in the industry and you're not sure what kind of numbers to use, just talk to your broker and always figure on the downside. Just figure you're going to be worse than you think. You always want to figure more appointments rather than less. But at the end of the day, again, guys, it's about those appointments. When you're looking at your calendar, which is, I'm spending so much time on this because it matters so much. When you're looking at your calendar, those main times to be setting appointments, to be creating conversations, are going to be 9 to 11 and 4 to 6. Saturday mornings are huge as well, but 9 to 11, 4 to 6, Saturday mornings. On that business planner that I just showed you guys, there's another tab as well. In fact, you know what? I'll just show it to you guys so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm not just talking about it. On that business planner that I showed you here, there's another part too, where it's going to allow you, let me make this bigger so you guys can see it. This is going to allow you to see okay, where did business come from? Where did those surges come from? Okay. So on top of doing the actual planner where it's telling you how many appointments you need, the other thing you want to do is hit the other one down here and really start to see, okay, where'd the ROI come from? Where did those surges ultimately come from? So now you know where to spend that time. When we're talking about your calendar, you need set times. When am I shooting content? And content's easy in today's world, guys. You're doing green screens, have sites you're looking at, keepingcurrentmatters.com, nowbam.com, housingwire.com. Look at my social stuff and just kind of look at it and say, oh, I can do some kind of a video on that. These are all ways that we stay visible, we stay in front of people, because I'm going to say it again, we do not make people buy and sell. That is a misnomer. Our job is to be there when it happens, and that happens through visibility. Last thing I'll tell you is when we talk about the calendar, and this is a very important point, guys, we don't just plan for, what we're doing as far as business-wise and all these things. Have your getaways on there. I'm a big believer that we always need something to look forward to. One of the great questions I started asking a couple years ago, because guys, I work hard, I work a lot, I travel a lot, I'm always doing something and thinking of something. And you get to a point when you go, for what? Right? Have any of you ever like just kind of like just work so hard, and like at some point you're just like, you almost get tired of like, what is this for? Like tomorrow I'm going to wake up and do the same thing. Tomorrow I'm going to wake up and do the same thing. At some point you get to a point and you say, for what? You got to have something to look forward to. I've already got my trip planned to Cabo for New Year's Eve. I've got the end of January, my guys' trip to Puerto Rico. We're going to San Juan, Puerto Rico at the end of January. I've always got things that I'm looking forward to that make it so worth it with all the work I'm doing and everything. Get the advance on your calendar, September 18th and 19th in Orlando. That should be on your calendar. You don't wait and see how business is. You don't wait and see whether you have time. You don't wait and see. These things should be on your calendar ahead of time so you know what you're working for. When the things you want to do with your family, maybe you're doing camping trips, maybe you're doing whatever it is. I don't care what your thing is. All of it belongs on your calendar. You don't wait until you have a breakdown, right? Last year, I know we talked a lot about people burning out. And I said, guys, we don't burn out because we're doing too much. We burn out because we're doing too much that we don't care about, right? And so ultimately, if you want to care about the work you're doing every single day, you've got to connect the work you're doing every day to something that you care so much about. And so the idea that I'm doing this work and I'm doing all these inspections and I'm doing all these open houses and I'm doing all these showings, because I do them, I get to do that. When you connect it to something that you're passionate about, watch how passionate you'll become about the things that you do on a daily basis, okay? So the first thing we do is we take control over our calendar, and I'm going to ask you that question one more time. How boring can you be in 2025? How's that for motivation for you guys, okay? How boring can you be? Number two, we got to get our finances in order. Now, I'm thinking about I did this years ago, I might do it again. I am thinking about doing another training just on finances. If you guys want that, put yes in the comments. I'd love to see if you want me to do that. But really simple, the stuff we've talked about for years, but I know some of you are new, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, okay? And Tom, if you could write this in the comments, it's going to be 35% taxes, 25% business, 25% personal, 15% savings and investment. You ready? I'm going to go slow. Ready? 35% taxes. Let me know when you got that. Put it all in one thing, though. 25% business, 25% personal, 15% savings and investment. You got that? 15% savings and investment. Okay? So, guys, that's the breakdown of your money. When you get commissions in, you should have it automatically set up, right? If you want to come from a position of strength, you've got to come from a position of strength with your finances, right? You don't wait. You don't spend money before it gets there. You don't wait and see how much you can get away with taxes. You don't. 35% of your income, your commissions, goes towards taxes. You have a separate account. You can set up rules in your bank account where it automatically does that. 25% goes towards your business expenses. This is your leases. This is your marketing. This is your 25% goes towards business. 25% goes towards personal. That is your mortgage, your rent, your car, all these things. 15% goes towards savings and investment. Now, when you look at the breakdown of how it's going right now, if it is off from that, it means we have to start to make adjustments. Some of us are living way beyond our means. Do we have, again, I've covered this stuff with you a million times. Do we have QuickBooks or some kind of a system like that set up to our accounts, set up to our bank accounts, our credit cards, where automatically our expenses are being tracked, our income's being tracked. We can see every single month where we're at, profit and loss, return on investment for different spending that we have. Are we running our business like a business? Right? You run a business or you run around. The things I've said for years here, guys. Do we have that? Do you have a bookkeeper who's handling it for you? You can go on Upwork, upwork.com. You can get a bookkeeper in another country for $10 an hour, who literally will just keep everything in order for you. But are you running your business like a business, or are you just winging it? Have you set up when your commission checks are coming in? Are they coming to you personally, or are they coming to an LLC you've set up or an S Corp you've set up? I'm not going to get into the difference right now, but the point is, are we running a business like a business? The important thing when it comes to money, and this is not a training on money, that's why I'm going over this so quickly. I've said this a million times, guys. We don't make money. Money's already made. Money is already out there in the environment. It's out there in your ecosystem. It's out there. Literally, it's already printed. Money's already printed. The only question is how do you go out and get your share of that? Because all money does is pass from one person to another. It's all out there in the ecosystem. It just passes from one person to another. The question in your business is, have you set your business up in a way that you get what you deserve? I said before, you don't make people buy and sell houses. Your job is to be there when it happens. The only question is whether they use you. That money, that commission is going to get passed to somebody. You don't make it happen. The question is whether it's going to come to you. How do you put your business in a place to receive the amount of money that you deserve? Are you selling ads on your website, right? For those people who are in your core 100, are you actually selling banners or ads or the ability to promote themselves on your website? That's more money that's coming to you. Do you have revenue coming from your podcast? Do you have ancillary services? Do you have, this is all part of, you don't make money. Money's already made. How do you get more of it to come to you? What offers do you make for that to happen, right? If I were to right now, think about this, guys. I'm not going to, but if I launched right now another social mastermind, I said, hey guys, we did one. It was super successful. I'm doing another one right now. We would have a plethora of you guys that would sign up and come join the next social mastermind. That money's already out there. The only difference is I did something to make it come to me. I hope that makes sense to you guys. That's literally how you guys have got to think about this. And I'm looking at really quickly here at the comments. And I think I'm hearing we should probably do another money finance class where we go into detail on this stuff. So maybe we'll do that. Tom, make a note. Maybe we'll do a live like this and we can get our money straight, because it sounds like that's something that people want to talk about. Okay. But the point is, guys, we can't ignore our money. I know that we grew up in a world where you ignore money. You don't talk about it. Money controls so much. Okay. Money is so important. Money is a tool. Money is a resource. Okay. Not just for yourself, but for other people around you. And you got to make 2025 the year that you really get your money under control. You know where it is. You know how it's operating. You know what you're doing with it. You know when you're short on it. You know when you have more. You know what you're going to do with it when you get it. You know how to take it and make more babies. All of that. Okay. So we focus on our money. And I think we're going to do a money training based on the response that I saw from you guys in the comments there. Okay. Number 3, we got to make the necessary pivots. I don't know if you guys have had your head buried in the sand, but there's been some changes in our industry. And, some of it's annoying. Some of it is, was forced, and some of it's not right. But it doesn't matter whether it's right or not. It doesn't matter whether we agree with a lot of these lawsuits. It doesn't matter. I think for any of you that follow me on Instagram or these other platforms or TikTok or whatever, you know that nobody has been more vocal than me about what a bunch of crock this is. Okay. But it doesn't matter. We can get angry for 5 minutes, kick and scream, say our favorite swear word, but on minute 6, we got to figure out what's best for our consumer. We don't have to agree with everything that happened in order to take advantage of everything that happened. And one of the beauties about what happened here is that conversation is now forced. There are people in your area who have sold real estate for years, and literally all they had to do was be a matchmaker on Instagram. They're just a matchmaker, and they didn't have to understand our business. They didn't have to be pros. They just had to get along with people. Well, those days are over. There is now friction that's been forced on our industry. You have to have a conversation with every buyer about signing an agreement, not signing an agreement. Whether that's going to be a touring agreement, whether that's going to be a buyer agency agreement, whether that's going to be exclusive or non-exclusive. I said to an audience the other day, I'm like, I'd probably be doing a lot of non-exclusives and letting my relationship speak for how committed they are to me. And someone said, well, I'm not going to go out there and, work with these people and show them a house and then know that they can leave me at any time. And I was like, McFly, that's what you've been doing for 25 years. What are you talking about? That's what we've always been doing. A contract is not what binds somebody to you. It's the relationship, right? And we need to remember that as transactional as everyone's trying to make this industry, we have to remember that it's a relationship business, and that the upside of everything going on right now is that conversation is becoming paramount again. And knowing what to say and when to say it and how to say it, the pros are ultimately going to win. And so the question is, have you pivoted? Have you adjusted to this new world where conversation is paramount? It used to be that the friction was, trying to get an online lead or whatever to talk to you, to whatever. But once you got them face to face, you'd win. Well, now the friction is when you're face to face. Like, that's interesting, right? So now we have to know what to say, when to say it. We're going to have buyer FSBOs, just like there's seller FSBOs, for sale by owners, fastest and shortest business opportunity. We're now going to have buyer FSBOs, and we got to know what to say to them. If I were to ask you, I asked this to a live audience the other day, and it was so interesting, the response. And I'd love to ask you guys right now. You don't have to answer like in the comments, but just in your head answer. How many of you right now, knowing that we're going to have to do buyer presentations, just like we do listing presentations, how many of you have started tracking what your win percentage is on multiple offers? What your sale to list ratio is when you work with a buyer? What you're like, all of this data that now matters. Because when you talk to a buyer, it's going to matter because they're going to talk to multiple agents now. And many of them are going to be buyer FSBOs, meaning they're going to decide to represent themselves, even though it's not in their best interest, because they don't find anybody who provides the value that they think they deserve. And if you can't communicate your value, well, then it ultimately doesn't matter. And so how many of you have started to look at that data and have started to think about, how do I communicate that to them? Because the beauty about the market that we're now in is that every single one of you is going to make exactly what you're worth. And there has never been a better time to be a great agent than right now, for those that actually communicate that, for those that understand that now we have to be able to have these very difficult conversations with buyers. Now you need to be able to talk to a buyer and tell them, hey, great leaders, great teachers, they're great simplifiers, right? That's what they do. And so you've got to be able to tell a buyer, hey, when they ask you what happened, you've got to be able to first off lead with curiosity and just kind of say, when they say, well, I heard blank, 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 you got to look back and just say, well, what did you hear? And let them talk. Because many times you'll find that it's surface level. They just read a headline and now you know where to go. Okay. But let them talk and say, hey, what'd you hear? So, I don't know. My sister sent me a link. I heard I had to bring it up. Okay. Who knows? Right. But let them talk, lead with curiosity. But then you got to learn to simplify it and say, what happened? Attorneys got involved and they just complicate everything. And you're nodding your head and they're nodding their head because they're like, yeah, attorneys complicate everything. And you say, well, attorneys it's really just a change in accounting. It used to be that the seller would pay the listing agent, they would co-op with the buying agent. It would just all pay to the listing agent, but it would all filter through and they would cooperate with the other agent. Now it's just a change in accounting. Now you have the seller paying the listing agent. In many cases, the seller paying the buying agent. Just a change in accounting. You got to learn words like that, guys. It's just a change in accounting. That's how you simplify it, right? But we have to be able to communicate in a way that makes sense. And you got to be able to tell them, yeah, attorneys got involved. It's a little different. There's really one of three ways this will go now. One is the traditional way, very likely, that we're going to show up. We're going to know what the compensation is. We'll put on our offer like we normally do, and it'll be just like normal. The second way, also very likely, is it's just a change in accounting. The seller's fully willing to pay out compensation. The only difference is we have to put it in our offer now, so that it's not getting paid directly by the listing agent anymore. We just put it in our offer, just a change in accounting. And third and least likely is that you have a seller who's completely not willing to compensate. And, the truth is they're not willing to compensate anybody, not just me, but not anybody. We'll know that ahead of time. I'll be able to give you a full net sheet so you know exactly, what it looks like, what you're responsible for, so you can make a decision from there. We'll try to make that up in the offer that we put forward. But if they remain unwilling to compensate, then you'll have to actually pay the commission if they're not willing. And you have to be able to have these types of conversations with people. It's really that simple. And the person who communicates it the best and is the most professional when they do it is ultimately the one that's going to win. And so it sounds great for me to say stuff like, hey, we're going to get paid what we're worth. There's never a better time to be a great agent. But when the rubber hits the road, that's the kind of stuff that matters, is those actual conversations. And the beauty is that the new world that we're operating in, this new market we're operating in, it's not just you that has to have this conversation. Everyone does. Conversation is now forced. Like, that's how it's going to work now. I was joking around with an audience I was talking to recently, and I said, have you ever You ever seen someone from the opposite sex and they're like super hot? They're like a 9 or a 10. And then they start to talk. And really quickly, they go 8, 7, 6, 5. You guys know what I'm talking about. And at the same time, you ever seen somebody who's like a 5 or a 6 and they start to talk and it's 7, 8, 9, 10, like it goes up? That's what conversation does. And every single person watching me right now is going to have the chance moving forward in this new market that we're in, because conversation's been forced. You're all going to get the opportunity to see what it's like to be the hot girl in the room. Because if you know what to say and you're great with the conversation, when you open your mouth and you start to talk and you start to explain and you tell people what's actually going on now and you simplify things for people and you're the pro in the area, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's what's going to happen. But in order for us to get there, we've got to be less nostalgic for what used to be, and we got to be more excited about what's coming. That's ultimately the place we have to be at. And we don't have to agree with everything that happened in order to believe that. Okay. Number 4. This might be the most important point outside of the calendar, and that is we have to capitalize on the transactions that are happening right under our nose. Number 4 is we have to capitalize on the transactions that are happening right under our nose. And here's what I mean by that. You know, about 5-10 years ago, I used to always talk about the idea of like the left side of the transaction and the right side of the transaction. And we talked about lifetime value. And we talked about there's no such thing as a past client. There's only active clients and prospective clients. And active clients are anybody currently buying or selling from you, or anybody who's prospecting on your behalf for someone who will. There is no such thing as a past client based on our ability to stay in communication. And when we just had our advance in Orlando, I talked about how, we ultimately have to be more willing to be reminded than we are to be taught. We have to be reminded, like the things that matter. And this is what I'm talking about. When we talk about the right side of the transaction, meaning post-close, where all the value is, right? The transaction doesn't stop at the closing. It starts at the closing. All the lifetime value of a client happens after that closing. And yet so many of us, all of our time is spent on the left side of the transaction, pre-close. And yet all the value is post-close. What I want to remind you guys is, the average person buys or sells now. It used to be every 5 to 7 years. It's now every 10 to 10 and a half years. But let's think about what that actually means. If the average person buys or sells once every 10 years, if you have 1,000 people in your database, that means that you have 1,000 transactions sitting right under your nose in the next 10 years, meaning you have 100 transactions per year, really 150, because half of them are going to buy and sell, and half of them are going to buy or sell. And while we're out there with our business plans chasing all these new people, we have people right under our nose. Do the math on that, guys. How big's your database? Is your database have 5,000 people? That means you have 5,000 transactions statistically that are going to happen the next 10 years, 500 per year. And we're out here chasing leads and chasing things to try to get to 20, 30, 40 transactions, whatever. Your sole goal needs to be, how do I capitalize on the ones happening right under my nose? How do I create conversation? And conversation is never easier than in a time of transition, in a time of uncertainty, in a time of conversation is never easier. Every single one of you needs to be sending out a message 30 times a day by text message, by whatever, that literally just reaches out to the people in your database and just says, hey, so-and-so, just wanted to check in and see if any of the recent news has changed your real estate plans in the next 12 months. That's it. Just start the conversation. Tom, can we post that in the comments? I said, hey, everyone, or hey, so-and-so, whatever their name is. Hey, so-and-so, just wanted to check in and see if any of the recent news changed any of your real estate plans in the next 12 months. Now, guys, that's a conversation starter, because they're going to determine which way that conversation goes. They're either going to have it have something to do with rates. Well, the rates are doing this, have something to do with the settlement, have something to do with whatever it is. That's such an open-ended question that it allows them to determine what that conversation looks like. But your job, your sole job in this business, your sole job in 2025, when we say, hey, your database, all of these transactions sitting right under your nose, your sole job is just create conversation. That's it. Every day, how do I create more conversations? Conversations equal closings. And you cannot make closings happen, but you can make conversations happening. Our job as the world gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger is, how do you make it smaller for those in your community? How do you make it smaller for those in your database? How do you make it smaller? That's all that matters. As the world gets bigger, how do you make it smaller? And if you're paying for leads and trying to whatever, I'm not anti you paying for leads. I'm anti you paying for leads and doing those things if you're not first creating conversation with the people who are closest to you. Because if you're spending more time into that kind of marketing and that kind of stuff, whatever, than you are into creating the conversations with the people in your database, your system is broken right now. That's what I'm telling you. And meanwhile, we're trying to keep communication open by sending them, what the latest mortgage rates are and the world's best apple pie recipe. And they could just jump on here and go, Siri, what's the best apple pie recipe? Awesome. Unsubscribe. That's not valuable to them. A lot of you need to start asking yourself, would I respond to my marketing? Would I create conversation if somebody was sending those kind of things to me? That's the key thing right now. You look at my buddy runs a company, Happy Grasshopper, whose sole job is to make people raise their hand and create conversation. Those are the types of places you need to be investing in moving forward. When you look at places like mosaic.io, put that in the comments, Tom. MOSAIK, mosaic.io, who solely focuses on the right side of the transaction. That who's going to win moving forward. Those that invest in the right side of the transaction and aren't just continually trying to recreate, those are the ones who are going to win. Those that are creating content on a regular basis, which stays in front of their people, that makes them think of you, that makes them visible. And I'm not just telling you this, I do it on a regular basis. This isn't some guru, some financial advisor pulling up in a Pinto. I'm doing what I'm telling you to do because it works. Okay. And so what I'm saying is all that other stuff's great. Do your marketing, do your lead creation, pay for your leads. I have no problem with that. I have a problem with it when you do it in spite of the stuff that actually works, what matters, which is the people in your phone, the people in your database. Because can I say something that maybe some of you aren't going to like? I'm going to, so let's just do this. The reason why people like me have to talk about this new conversation with buyers and sellers and what it looks like and the pivots and all this stuff is because so many of us haven't been running our business in a way that I've been talking about for the last 10 years. That's the truth. When you look at all these conversations about what's happened and what it means, you only have to have those conversations with new people that are using you for the third and fourth time, people who trust you, people who are your past clients, people who have referred you, people who whatever. They don't care. They will sign an agreement quicker than a waiver at a bounce house. They don't care. And so we have to get back to going all in on those that are already close to us, already know us, already. That's got to be your plan for 2025. When I talk about how boring can you be in 2025, it's got to be built around those people. And then everything else comes secondary. Once we're mastering those, then we look at, what is our lead follow-up system? What are all of that? Awesome. Go for it. But not if you're neglecting everybody who's already in here. And if you don't take that phrase that I put out there before, hey, has any of the recent news changed your real estate plans the next 12 months? If you're not sending that to every single person, if you're not texting that to 30 people a day, you're missing your opportunity for tons of conversation, for radical conversation starters. And that's ultimately what creates closings is conversations. They just need to know you exist, because I'll say it again. We don't make people buy or sell houses. Our job is to be there when they do it. That's it. How do we get in front of them? You do it through content. You do it through conversation starters. That's our sole job. Those people who are already in your database, already in your phone, that's where you'll win. Do the numbers. How many people are in your database? That's how many transactions there are in the next 10 years. Multiply that or divide that by 10. That's how many there are in the next year. It's crazy when you think about how many there are. And what's really crazy is how many we're missing on a regular basis because we don't think like that. Okay. Number 5, and last but not least, before I get into questions, and we've got one more thing we're going to give away before I close. So I'm going to give away some more stuff here for all of you that are staying on, is that we need to become the pro that deserves to win moving forward. Hobbyists will not win in this market. I was at an event the other day and I said, how many of you have been in the industry less than 5 years? And half the audience raised their hands. And I'm like, holy crap, you guys have never experienced a real market. Like, you literally have just experienced a COVID market and a whatever. Like, we've not experienced a real market. What does the actual infrastructure of a pro look like? Do you have everybody, whether you're day one or day whatever, like has to have a TC, a transaction coordinator? You should not be doing paperwork. You don't pay anything for that. You only pay when they actually close. That is a no-brainer. The other giveaway we're doing here, because I say this every single year, because it's my goal, like every one of you should be working with a TC. We are going to give away to everybody who's not a current client. I have a company called Cleared and Closed. And if you can put the link in the comments, Tom, clearedandclosed.com. In fact, I'll create a banner right now so you guys have it. We are going to give away a free transaction to everybody who's a new client. Absolutely no obligation. Like you just get a free, let me just put it here, guys, clearedandclosed.com. When you do a consult, you set up your system as far as what you're doing for every single one of your clients, your workflow, you're all going to get your first transaction free. No obligation. You just get to try them out. So go to clearedandclosed.com. Do this for your business. Do this for your clients. You need to be the pro that is giving them the experience that they ultimately want. If you as yourself am running as a solo entrepreneur for all of you're not giving them an option. Like literally they can use you or they can use someone else. And in the world we live in where we say you're going to get paid exactly what you deserve and there's never a better time, they're going to go to the people that they're paying essentially the same for, but they're getting a structure. They're getting an actual business. They're getting people who handle things within their business. Are you offering that? Or are you saying, I'm going to handle everything? Which there's a chaos to that. We have a thing, if you guys want it, we developed years ago, the 7 stages of team development. If you go into our group on Facebook, Jared James Coaching, and then you go to the files, you can see what those 7 stages are. You can look at it for 100% free. Stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, all the way through to stage 7. You need to be asking yourself, what stage, because of the stage of my life that I'm in, or the season of life, what stage do I belong in? Because nobody belongs at stage 0, and your consumers aren't going to want that. And as things get more congested and we have less and less agents that are doing more of the business, which is exactly what's going to happen, ultimately, you have to determine if you were on the other side, would you use you as a solo or would you use somebody else they're paying essentially the same thing for, but getting more out of it? And they have specialists during the 3rd most stressful time in their life, death, divorce, and moving, buying and selling the largest asset they're ever going to purchase. And so ultimately, you've got to look at it and say, hey, pros are going to win, not hobbyists. How do I, little by little, not overnight, anything that can be built overnight could be torn down overnight. How do I ultimately get to a place where I'm offering what I would select if I was on the other side? And then you start to look at your environment and you say, hey, once I decide what's acceptable for me, how do I build an environment, an ecosystem around myself that ultimately supports that? Many of you need to get with your coach and you need to talk about what are the things that need to change. And then how do we hold ourselves accountable to that? Like, what does that look like? And then we get back to the question I asked in the beginning. How boring are you willing to be in 2025? I've actually thought about, I don't think I'm going to do it because it would be completely boring. It sounds good in the beginning, but then it would go downhill quick, of just starting to post like on my stories and stuff on Instagram, just the boring crap I'm doing. Like, here it is, doing this once again. It's like those hashtag did you sweat todays that I did for a while, and I still do them from time to time now, but it's like, this is what happens. This is what happens. Okay. All of us, when we look at and say, how committed am I to being boring? We have to look at why it is that we want it. We have to connect our goals to something. I said before, we don't get what we want according to goals. We get what we want according to systems and processes, to the routines that we follow. But the only way that we connect them to the routines is if we connect those goals to things that matter to us. Why do they matter? Why does it matter if your business does well? Or more importantly, why does it matter if your business doesn't do well? If you're watching me right now, chances are you're self-employed. You get to choose your schedule. I've said it for years and I'll say it again. Happiness does not come from achieving your goals. It comes from the gratitude of recognizing how lucky you are to choose your goals to begin with. That's it. I'm going to say that one more time for so many of you that are watching right now. Happiness does not come from achieving our goals. We think it does. We think it's like, oh, I hit my goal, I'm happy. Oh, I didn't hit my goal, I'm not happy. Real maturity understands that happiness doesn't come from hitting your goals. It comes from the understanding of just how lucky you are to be in a position to even set those goals to begin with, whether you hit them or not. When you really understand what it is that I just said, you realize just how powerful that is. And whatever you're not changing, you're choosing. Think about that for a second. Whatever you don't change, you choose. So if you're in a relationship that's no good and it's terrible and whatever, but it's not changing, you chose it. If you're not happy with the income level that you have right now, you chose it. If you're not happy with the food you're eating and where you're at with your own body and you choose it. Whatever we're not changing, we're choosing. And that's a tough reality when you think about it. Like, that hits hard, because who else do you blame when you hear something like that? Whatever you're not changing, you're choosing. Okay. And so at the end of the day, guys, when we talk about it, when we talk about those 5 things there, number 1, take control over your calendar. How boring are you willing to be this year? Figure out, get that business plan and figure out how many appointments do I need, so that I know exactly where I'm at and exactly where I'm not at. What does it actually look like? What do those conversations look like? Number 1 is we got to take control over that calendar. Number 2, get your finances in order. And I think I'll actually do a training specifically to your finances, so that will actually help you guys. We can get very specific about what that means. Number 3, make the necessary pivots. We cannot bury our head in the sand and act like nothing's happened right now. It absolutely has happened. There's no doubt about it. And we owe it to our consumer, whether we agree with the changes or not, we owe it to our consumer to make sure that we're the best option to educate them on what's happened, be there for them, and to be a great agent, because there's never been a better time to be a great agent. Number 4, we got to capitalize on the transactions happening right under our nose, guys. That database, your phone, create conversation. Don't lose sight of what I said. If you have 5,000 people in your database, you have 5,000 transactions that are going to happen in the next 10 years. Really 7,500 if you think about it. It's 500 a year, 750 a year. I don't have an issue with you going after everything else, but what do you do about those that are right in front of you first? That's what matters. And then last but not least, we got to become the pro that deserves to win. We are going to have a smaller percentage of people that are going to win moving forward. And the only question is whether that's going to be you or whether that's going to be someone else. Okay. I want to tell you guys before I go to Q&A here, because I am going to answer some questions. So you can start putting your questions in the comments below there. You guys can get to that. If you enjoyed this today, hit that like button. Just give me like a like, share it with someone else so they have it as well. We want to, help as many of you as possible in the new year. We want to see you at the advance, obviously, in September. But we just launched something called Jared James Academy, where you can not only at the lowest level be with me live twice a month, have access to our courses, our app, our Jared James Academy app, all of this stuff we do for as little as $99 a month, all the way up to the one-on-one coaching and training we do and those kind of things. If you guys want to learn a little bit about that, just go to the link that's on there. And Tom, if you could post that in the comments, jaredjamestoday.com/academy. This is our group of people that we're committed to, that we hold accountable to really deserve winning in the new year. And that's really what it comes to, guys. I keep saying it, I'll say it again. We have a smaller percentage of people who are going to win moving forward. And you've got to look at it and say, am I investing on a level that I deserve to win, that people should be working with me? Okay. I'm going to go to questions, guys. So go ahead and post them in there. Again, if you enjoyed this, give this a like right here, share it out to somebody else. Somebody said I didn't get the plan. Okay. So when you went to the thing, jaredjamestoday.com/plan, the thank you page it goes to, the third button down is the download the plan button. It also will have been emailed to you. So check your spam folder if you don't see it in your inbox. Okay. I'm getting a ton of awesome. What kind of questions do you guys have? I love the comments. Been following you for 10 years now. Always learn something new from you. Amy, what's going on? Good to see you. It's so cool seeing so many of you on here that I've known for years and years and years. Such a cool thing. Will this be available as a video to watch again? Yes, that's why we do it on Facebook Live, is because it'll automatically replay here. We'll actually cut it the beginning and the end. We'll put it up on my YouTube channel. We'll take the audio. We'll put it on my podcast, Today with Jared James. So that'll all be on all of those places. We really appreciate if you share this with the other people in the industry Someone wrote, the Academy is a no-brainer. It's worth every penny, and Jared is practically giving it away. Sign up, people. And I can't agree more. Literally right before I got on live with you guys, I was live with them. So if you want a platform where less than $100 a month, I go on with you live. We have courses available. I go live with you guys, answer your questions. Like, we were trying to find something that allowed me to get active with everybody again. And so that's what we did. We launched our Academy. Any recommendations on a virtual assistant? There's so many different options. Go into our group, Jared James Coaching on Facebook, and just type, who are you guys using for virtual assistants? You'll get a bunch of answers from everybody, and you can see what their actual experiences are. I don't want to mention a company myself, so just go see who everybody else is using. Okay. Someone said, I'm not seeing comments. I'm seeing all the comments, and I think everybody else is too. I did Jared's coaching this year. It was so worth it. I had Lexi and she rocks. Emily, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, guys, there's the Academy, which is the lower end, and then there's the one-on-one coaching. If you're in the one-on-one coaching, you get a one-on-one coach. Not only is it a tax write-off, but you also get the rest of the stuff of the Academy, meaning live with me twice a month, all the courses, the Jared James Academy app, all of it. So when you're in the one-on-one, you get everything else that's under that as well. Highly recommend the advance. September 18th and 19th, guys. Make sure you get your tickets to that. That's going to be awesome. Hey, what's going on, guys? How would you suggest establishing yourself in a new area? Melissa, the easiest way to establish yourself is honestly content, networking and content. I just did a training with our Academy where I talked about how to pull in other business owners, interview them, but do a contest, have them do a giveaway, $100 gift card, $200 gift card, do a Facebook Live like I'm doing now. Before you interview them, tell them you're going to run a contest for the gift card. You'll be giving it away on Friday. In order to enter the contest, you got to make sure you're following me. Make sure that you comment and tag somebody below who also wants to win, and share this to your people. You keep doing those types of interviews, and they'll go viral because of the sharing and the commenting and those things. More and more people will get to know you as a realtor in the area. I've said it over and over. Your job is not to make people buy and sell. Your job is to be there when it happens. Okay. What do you tell fall sellers on the market who are thinking of withdrawing until the spring? It's very simple. First off, again, you can't make anybody do anything, but I would ask them. I would say, hey, that's actually a common thing that a lot of people think of doing. But if you're going to do that, what do you think everybody else is going to do? They're going to say, yeah, they're going to wait till the spring. Awesome. So if you do that, do you think there's going to be more or less competition when you put it back on the spring and everybody else does as well? Well, there's going to be more competition. What do you think that means for pricing? Just ask questions. You can't make them do something, but make them think it through. Why would you want to put it back on the market when everybody else is as well, giving yourself more competition when you can keep it on now when there's less competition and potentially have a buyer go after your property because there's not other ones available? Like, it's just, unless there's some kind of life situation going on, just ask questions. Oh God, someone said, I need help with time blocking. What should I be doing every day? Well, I mean, some of the stuff we talked about here. You want to make sure you're exercising every day. You want to make sure that you're doing some kind of prospecting every day. We talked about 9 to 11, 4 to 6. You want to make sure you have a set time when you're actually doing your appointments. So you're going and meeting people. You want to make sure that you have set times on the weekends or different time blocking when you're going and doing a set number of open houses and whatever those are going to look like. Like, there are very specific things. Go on YouTube and type in Jared James, what should I be doing every day? I have an actual video that breaks down exactly the things that should be on your calendar. Okay. Here's my question. Did I win the ticket to Orlando? We're not drawing until Friday. And it's a set of tickets, by the way, that we're going to be giving away. Okay. Let me see, guys. Are there any, I'm trying to see if there's any new questions. A lot of things here. Oh boy. What is your most essential personal habit that you feel makes you successful? God, that's a loaded question because it's a series of things. The obvious one, though, is just exercise. Exercise is something that most people don't do, that creates an inner narrative in your head that says, if I can do that, I can do anything, even when I don't feel like it. So exercise is a big one. And then personally, too, it's just prioritizing my life. you guys don't know me personally, but if you did, you would know how much I prioritize my children and doing things with them. And as it is, I may not be at NAR this weekend like I was planning to, because my son might have a soccer game. There's just little things like that. That on a personal end, when you asked the question that you did, those are the things that I think make me most successful, because not just because of what they do personally, but the inner narrative they create and the lifestyle they create that really matters. What CRM are people using? Guys, I'm a big fan of Wise Agent. If you go to wiseagent.com/Jared James, you get a special deal on that CRM. I think if you actually go to jaredjamestoday.com/offers, it has, would you type that it has all the different things. jaredjamestoday.com/offers with an S on the end, OFFERS. Just put that in the comments. You missed me last week at HGAR. Hopefully next time I'll get to see you in person. How do I get the digital planner? You just go to jaredjamestoday.com/plan. It's in the comments above. What's one thing you feel resonates with your database the most? Visibility, transferability, or personal reaching out to each of them? It's not one thing, guys. It's a collection. It's kind of like branding. The old school notion of it takes 6 different touches for someone to remember your name. That's still relevant. It's just what those 6 touches are. It's changes now. Maybe it's not going to be a magazine or a billboard. It's going to come through content and personally reaching out and those types of things. So there's things that remain true. It's just that how they happen has changed. So it's not whether it's personally reaching out or it's the content. It's the mixture of the two of them together, right? So they watch your content, whether they comment or not, but they're watching it all the time. They're seeing you all the time. And now when you reach out, now when you run into them at a school function, now when they're like, oh, I just saw your video, loved whatever. It's all meshing together now. So it's not one or the other. It's a collection of all of it. I'm seeing all sorts of questions here. All right, guys, I am going to let you guys go one last time. You can see it up on there, jaredjamestoday.com/academy. I hope that we get a ton of you in the academy for the new year. We got a lot of special things planned for you guys. The advance, September 18th and 19th in Orlando. Get your tickets now. It's the cheapest you're going to see them. jaredjamestoday.com/advance. It's the cheapest you're going to see them. It's not, they're just going to keep going up and up and up. If you want that business plan for free, just go to jaredjamestoday.com/plan, PLAN. You guys can see that there. I will go back over these questions throughout the day and start trying to answer. There's just a whole lot of them right now. And then last but not least, like I said in the beginning, guys, if you enjoyed this, give it a like. Make sure you share it so other people can take advantage of it. We want as many people to get in this as possible. But guys, 2025 is about how boring can you be? How simple can you be? Master your routine and you will guarantee your success. It's not about which app this, which that, which whatever. Your database, guys. The closer you can get to your database, the more mundane, the more boring you can make your routine, the more you're going to win in 2025. I know that's not motivational. I'm so sorry, but that is just the truth. All right, guys. I love you guys. I got a lot of live events coming up, so I'll see some of you guys live and in person soon. 2025 is already booking up, even when it comes to events and those things. I will get to these when I'm done here, guys. Love you guys to death. I'll see you soon. Have a good one.